Well, welcome to everybody this morning to this forum that's being presented by both the Lawrence Board of Realtors and the Lawrence Home Builders Association. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to Security First Title for allowing us to use the space. Super helpful, and we appreciate that partnership. So what I would like to do, because these candidates have been busy, and I want to be really respectful of their time and of your time and make this as productive as possible. So we've got a microphone. I am going to pass this around to them. Let them start by just briefly introducing themselves and telling us a little bit about why you're running for City Commission. This should be. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Christine Polian, and running for City Commission, obviously. The reason behind running is I really think I can affect change, ultimately. I moved back here in 2021, lived here previously from 94 to 99, went to school here. My brother played football here, he's lived here forever. And I've been entrenched in the community, though not living back here until 2021. I brought my two children, who are 8 and 13, back here. And upon moving back, I recognized that there were some issues. I have a lens a little different than most. I've been in local government for 22 years, city management and finance, so I can see things usually a little quicker. So through the process of living here, I decided that I would put my career on hold and see if there's a place for me on the City Commission, and I really do think I can affect some change, so that's it.
My name is Mike Courtney. I started doing this because I was bored. But actually, let me tell you what really did happen. So, beginning of the year, I was sitting on my friend's porch. We're talking once again, we see that property taxes have gone up, utility costs have gone up, and we're just sitting there and we're like, hey, how does this ever change? And it was really in that moment I said, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring for this. That I have some ideas, and really at the end of the day, I wanted to look my kids in the eye and say, hey, the dad tried to make something better. So that's how that did get started, and I had a theory. I had a theory that in this town, there's a bipartisan coalition of people who want to make this town more affordable for their family, their friends, and their neighbors. And after the primary, I feel like I was right. I had no name recognition whatsoever, focused on affordability, and just feel pretty good about making that bet and throwing my name in here. I also had to ask myself, hey, what do I have to offer for the community? So, for me, I have 25 years IT experience. I've worked for companies like IBM, NVIDIA. I worked for a company, Cisco Systems, which is the largest networking company in the world. I've worked for 5 startups. I've had 2 successful exits. I've been a director in those startups. And then on top of that, too, so that's my private sector experience. On the public sector side, when I lived in DC, I built the public safety network of Washington, DC, Southern Maryland, and Northern Virginia. So I've worked with state, local, and federal before in the past. But I also knew, hey, I don't have the most amount of public sector experience that other people are running. So throughout this campaign, I've said, I'm going to run an ideas-based campaign. It's been focused on 3 things. So 1, how do we make housing more affordable, which is very, very apropos here, so we'll be talking about that a little bit. The second thing was around the budget. When you look at the budget, with property taxes and utility costs, I brought 2 ideas, one of them being a capital improvement plan that is longer than 5 years, similar to what Wichita is doing. The other one is around what I lovingly call the Taj Mahal of East Lawrence, the MSO plan. I think we need to slow that down, stop that, take a breath before we go forward in the next phase and be able to get value out of it. And then the third thing was around the rec centers. For me, my local government engagement started with when the nature center was up on the chopping block. Myself, my wife, our neighbors, we came together and stopped that. And at that time, we put together the idea of a friends group. And so this idea for the friends group for what I wanted to do at the rec centers here would have raised $500,000. That is similar to what the library is able to do to cover their entire costs. So again, ideas-based campaign, looking forward to the questions. These questions are fantastic, and any questions after, appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Bob Schoen. I've been in Lawrence since I was 17. I never went home, according to my mother. And I've been blessed by having opportunity to start a business, run a business for more than 45 years. Got 4 children, 7 grandchildren, great wife. She earned her PhD from KU, was a professor of Spanish at Baker. She's retired now, so we've had a great life. I love the city, and I was sitting back watching things unfold, and I couldn't take it anymore. I just see so much that's not happening the way it should happen or could happen. And so that threw me into the race, and I've got 12 years of experience at City Hall, 3 terms as mayor. I think all those terms were pretty productive, and Lawrence did well. So I'm back. I'm back to try and push us forward. We have an unbelievable amount of potential that we need to tap into. You've got the Gateway project that just got approved. That's tremendous. That's going to give dividends to both KU and the town for a long time to come. You've got the West Campus development that's taking place right now. Tremendous amount of research possibility. And we just don't seem to be capitalizing on it. And I want to make that happen. So anyway, I would appreciate your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Bart John, the only incumbent here. Yeah, if you can take anything away from this, please take away kind of just something I've been saying lately is I've said it, I've meant it, and I'm doing it. So when I ran in 2021, I put it as a focus, housing and houselessness, economic development, and infrastructure. And I'm glad Bob mentioned the Gateway project as well as KUIP, the West Campus project. That's happened while I've been on the commission. Those are the kind of projects that I push forward in terms of economic development. Also, U.S. engineering is something we've done. Also, the child care center over in Pinckney for child care, which is vitally important for our community. It's something that we've supported and invested in. Additionally, DECA, things of that sort. So, basically why I ran the first time around is I saw there was a need and there was a space to go ahead and push us forward in areas that unfortunately we hadn't done in previous years, and those areas that I talked about. So in terms of houselessness, we've been able to go ahead and close down about 4 or 5 of those camps and go ahead and match those folks with resources, which has been awesome because of the work, not only with the city commission and the county and nonprofits and social organizations here in town, all pulling together in the same direction. We've developed a housing plan, a place for everyone, which promotes the continuum of housing, not just housing for folks who are houseless, or not just housing for folks who have houses and want to add other properties, for everybody in between, to make sure that we have that housing space for everybody. And then economic development, promoting entrepreneurship and small business development with organizations like CORE, the Chamber, KUIP, EDC, KU Small Business Development, and Beasley Tech, and also outreach to Haskell, making sure that we're promoting folks who want to start small businesses and grow small businesses and maintain their small businesses here in town, because those are what makes towns. Those are the folks that support Little League teams, soccer teams, and other town ventures here in town. And in addition to that, attracting commercial ventures that will help us kind of reverse the imbalance on our property tax, where it's heavily residential at the moment. So we need to go ahead and do something about that, because if we do that, that'll relieve the burden on residents long term and short term. So the last one, infrastructure, it's been deferred maintenance for a very long time. We're finally addressing that, and we have an asset management program that actually monitors what we have in the city and if it needs to be repaired or replaced. So that was a huge step forward in my term as commissioner. So hopefully I'm looking forward to the conversation here today, and I hope to, bring forward some points that'll, get me going and get you folks going and earn your support for another 4 years. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for those introductions. The way I think we want to proceed today, so we've written a number of questions geared towards housing and development. Those have been provided to the candidates in advance so that they can kind of think about their positions and their answers. But we also want to take questions from the audience, and we want to hear from you all. So I'm going to start with a first question. If you all have questions, be thinking about those and what you'd like to ask, and we'll open it up after this first question. You will also have opportunities to meet the candidates afterwards. We're going to do about 45 minutes here, and then they've agreed to give us another 45 minutes of their time afterwards. It'll be set up around the room, and you can go in and have one-on-one conversations with them as well. So let's start with housing supply, which obviously is a big issue in Lawrence. The Lawrence real estate market currently has about a 1.7 month supply. A healthy market, for reference, typically would be about 4 to 6 months supply. Low inventory is a problem nationwide, but several of our neighbors like Kansas City, Topeka, Manhattan have relieved a little bit of that pressure by increasing construction of additional units. The city of Lawrence has issued only 57 single-family building permits in 2024, and so far this year only 24. How can Lawrence pick up the pace of housing development? Christine, do you want to start?
I will, thank you. It is absolutely accurate that we shouldn't be here. The reality is, and I think a lot of it has been community divisiveness. Over the years, we've been trying to, in some cases, prevent urban sprawl, which is respectable. But regardless, we shouldn't be here. So how do we want to get out of it? Well, the first thing we have to do is we've got to fix planning and development at the city. In my exploration, it took me 2 months to decide whether or not I would file. And in that process, I met with some of you folks. I've met with several people who have been around for decades, and developers, builders have all said that it is very difficult to do business with the city of Lawrence. And that's actually been going on for many, many years. So we've got to speed up that process. Permitting, plan review, there's a litany of things that we need to improve upon. I think we've also kind of over-legislated the process. And if you over-legislate something, it's very difficult for staff to enforce. It's very difficult for users to understand it and know what to do, and it tends to become more costly. So Overland Park in 2024, they were looking at a portion of their city, and they brought in and I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, but they brought in consultants, and the consultants basically said, do less. Basically, we have a lot of public hearings that people have to go through, etc. OP said, or their consultants said, make it as easy as possible, keep it at the staff level. Obviously, you've got to have experts at the staff level, but that's what we've got to focus on. I think that's really how we do that. And then once we get there, I think we've got a lot of stuff in the makings now, and see how we can go from there.
Thank you. Mike Courtney? Yeah. When I also jumped into this race, I asked my friend's daughter, who just graduated from LHS, and my other friend's daughter who graduated from KU, hey, are you going to be able to buy a home in town? And they just looked at me and started laughing. They're like, Mike, are you kidding? And before the pandemic, there was an ask to people who hadn't bought a home before that was, what could you afford? And it was $125 to $265. Right now, the average price in town is $330, and the ones on the market are $370. So there's a gap between the 60% of renters in town who want to put down roots and what they can actually afford. And throughout this campaign, I've been looking into this idea of modular homes. If you look at what Overland Park and Tonganoxie are doing, Tonganoxie has this project called Stone Creek. It's in between Tongi and the Legends. They have built 130 homes in that facility thing. They sold them in 3 months. They're already building the next 130. When you look at what Overland Park is doing, they're working on this thing called Wolf Creek, not to be confused with the nuclear power plant, but they did that. They built 180 modular homes, and they're building the next 180. So there is room to start thinking about, are we building affordable homes, or are we building homes that are affordable? And I know from talking to the gentleman who built the one in Overland Park, I have to say this earlier, I asked him, I was like, were you excited to do this? And he goes, no, I wasn't excited to do this. My business has been built around building homes in this manner in a stick-built way for a long time. I said, okay, but you're going to build the next 180. He's like, yeah, because if you look at it now, I can build these homes, and in the aggregate, I make up the points by adding a deck, adding a garage extension, adding various things to these homes. So he's able to build more homes He's able to retrain his team, and he's able to make more points in the aggregate than he was before. So again, that's some of the ideas that I've been looking forward to in the campaign. So I completely agree, 54 homes is ridiculous, 24. Wichita State said that by the mid-century we should have 167,000 people living in town. And we can't do that if we only have 1,000 available lots with 500 usable.
Bob Sherman once again. I have had, I don't now because I retired, a contractor's license in the city of Lawrence, a class B license, which would allow me to build up to a 3-story building, tear it down. And I've walked the walk through City Hall, and it's a real slow walk. I mean, there's nobody starting down there, and you're not going to get run over by anybody. It's a very slow walk to get the permits, to get the permissions. Time's money, and it really wears you out, especially if you have to go through HRC and go back to HRC and go back to HRC one more time, and then go before the city commission, go back to the city commission one more time. So, all that adds up to frustration. In my case, I just said, heck with it, I'm out, I'm gone. And today there's a bunch of fruit trees down there where there would have been a 3-story building paying quite a bit more property tax. The delay in this stuff is unbelievable. I've been reading a lot, everybody's hearing about AI and the miracle situation that's going to create, but they have now an AI program that you can submit a building permit application, and it zaps it right away. It's in and out. It tells you what you need to do to fix to bring it up to the standard of the community, and it's a quick turnaround. And why can't we employ something like that rather than having the laborious situation where staff person after staff person has to look at the plans and sign off on it? And anyway, that's an idea. The other thing, when I ran my business and things were slow, I'd have a sale. We put a sale with ribs. Yeah, people came in. It was great. We're at that point in this discussion. It's slow, and we need some stimulus. I would look at perhaps not charging for building permits for a while, for a number of months, until you reach a number of new starts that would be satisfying to the community. You could target that to a certain level of home if you're trying to find only homes that are less than $300,000. So we need to incentivize some of this stuff in order to get some action going. So, there's all kinds of ideas that we could come up with. And really, I want to hear from you people. You're the ones that are in the trenches all day long, both trying to sell homes and build homes. And what ideas you have to move things along, you're the people that are closest to the issue. And I'm sure you've got some great ideas, so please tell me about them. Thanks.
It's a great question. So I would say a lot of it has been with the development of our new code. That's helped to answer Christine's question, kind of something she proffered. The new code makes it more simple. It's more streamlined. So, and we're in the feeling out process, and then basically we're getting input about it, and then coming up in the next couple of months we'll review it and see what works and what doesn't. But that's what it was designed for. Also with the new code, within it accounts for modular manufactured homes, where the other code, it really didn't. You kind of were left out on your own. So that helps it with that space as well. And to also speak to, kind of how it was a little bit laborious in City Hall, I get that. That's what I heard. That's what I heard when I first ran. And we worked on trying to go ahead and change that culture and make sure to go ahead and turn that vote around. It's going to take a little bit because that was kind of something that was there for quite a while. So it's happening, and we're conscious of it and we're working on it. So, and one thing a couple more things that I would like to add as well is it's one thing to mention a housing project and get a housing project, and then have it go before, go through the process and go before planning, and then, kind of come to city commission. It's another thing, like I've done, is to follow through and actually pass it and get it going. Because sometimes it just stops and it dies. And I passed through a lot of those in my time on commission. So I actually followed through and have done the things I said I was going to do. And to Bob's point, it's a great point about incentives. And actually the city is coming up with an affordable housing incentive policy. We'll have more information about that in November. I believe we'll be discussing that in November 11th meeting. And what it's bound to do and what its goal is to do is bring more private development to the table, incentivize that private development, and get more involvement, because it's just not going to happen by the city itself, or it's not going to happen with nonprofits. It's integral, and it's important that private development is a part of that equation as well. So being a part of that, and that's what the affordable housing incentive policy is directed towards. So hopefully we can get a lot of your input on that and make it the best that we can have it be. So thank you.
Anybody want to jump in with a question at this point? Yeah.
Brian Johnson, Brew Real Estate. You guys talked a lot about incentives to build the homes and how we can cut some of the red tape, get it out of the way. One big problem we have is, where are these homes going to go? Where do you envision building these?
So I'll go ahead and take it since I have my whole goal and my whole plan is both an infill and an annexation. And I think we need both, because all ideas on deck. Because as folks have said before, we're building way too little houses. So I've always thought it has to be affordable, accessible, and available. And by available, I think we just need more houses, more inventory just in general. So I'm open to, and I have been since on commission, open to annexation, and I'm open to any sort of possibility we can get to go ahead and add to our inventory. So.
Yeah, Bob Sherman. We're running out of lots. The available building lots, there are some around, but some people don't want to sell them, and some of the lots aren't really buildable. And so we're basically short of lots. So annexation is the next step. And that allows builders to build to scale. They can build 4, 5, or 6 at a time, or right next to each other. Keeps their costs down. It becomes more interesting for them. And I think that's our next step, is to annex both on the east and the west, and trying to get some scale going on the building of housing.
Mike Orley. Yeah, last night on my website, we published a press release about what a 100 R3 modular home development would look like on the east side of town. So we did publish that, trying to put that idea out there, what this could possibly look like. But I agree, yeah. When you look at people in Lawrence, where we all know what's going to happen going to the west, but there should be a focus about annexation to the east, because when you ask people, hey, where do you work? A lot of people I talk to work more towards Johnson County. They don't work at KU, they don't work for the city. They're working more to the east. We spend a lot of time going west, but there is room to the east outside of the floodplain. There are farmers who are looking to sell the acreage that they have. I believe that's an available option, and we should do that.
Several people have indicated to me that if we could build on it, we would have already built on it. So I want infill to be a much lower priority. Annexation is where it's at, truthfully. We don't want it to be unilateral. If we can avoid it, that causes some issues. And there's other issues that we have to contend with if we're going to do annexation. State statute dictates we have to provide services. We have to know how we're going to do that. So it's not easy to say annexation, but annexation is where it's at. We do not want to stop infill, but the general process needs to take much longer, and quite frankly, we don't have time for that. We really need to grow. So annexation.
So I want to stick with that topic of annexation and kind of follow up on that. So Plan 2040 requires, as a condition of annexation, that parties not only meet the statutory requirements, but that they also provide a community benefit, which could include things like donation of land to the Housing Trust Fund, or provision of land for public purposes such as a park. The Board of Realtors and the Home Builders Association both opposed that requirement when Plan 2040 was passed, because of concern that it would make housing development more expensive and result ultimately in less affordable housing. Do you support that requirement in Plan 2040? And in light of the current housing shortage and other budget issues, would you support reopening the discussion about that? Mike, you've got the microphone, so we'll start with you.
Do you mind if we kind of rotate?
Sure.
So it's not, okay, cool. Yeah, so I was reading through the document last night too, and one of the other things they said is, the creation of employment opportunities. So I do believe there needs to be an anchor institution in these new neighborhoods as they're being built. So I live in Prairie Park. For us, that's a nature center, the elementary school. But I'm open for having retail, commercial, also be part of the anchor institutions that new neighborhoods are built around. So I think there's wiggle room there. If we need to have more discussion to make sure that that is formalized into the code going forward, I completely support that.
Bob, Sean, I would certainly look at revising that requirement. Obviously, it's a stranglehold on what we're trying to get done. And if you got a chokehold and it's not working, then you got to change it. You got to fix it. And so I would certainly look at changing that rule and seeing if there couldn't be a better rule, or modified, or no rule at all. I just have to wait and see how it's presented and what the options are. But yeah, I would look at that for sure.
I believe the position of a commissioner is centered on evaluation and making sure that you look at all the tools in your toolbox to make the best decisions possible. So if that is something that we need to do, or we need to make a change, I'm open to all options. But I want to make sure that we still have the option of affordability in there, because I don't want us to miss out on the missing middle. Those, our teachers, our nurses, our policemen, our firemen, making houses affordable for them as well. So I just want to make sure that that's a huge part of the conversation.
In general, I support that rule as far as giving back to the community. I've worked for cities that did that. But the reality is, I mentioned over legislation. You don't over legislate because you really need to remain flexible. Am I okay with changing that rule or any rule? Typically, yes, depending on the state of where we are. You can look at a city over 4 decades, and each decade that city will require something different. We need to grow. We need people to be able to afford a home if they can. And what we should do is, and we need builders to be able to build them at a cost that is viable. So we need to remain flexible. Whatever we need to do to the codes, not code, but 2040, whatever we need to do to our plans need to give us the opportunity to be flexible. So in today's day, I would say absolutely, let's focus on what the builders can afford and people can buy. Look at it again in 2 to 3 years, and we just got to remain flexible all the time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thomas?
So affordability is defined by area median income, a percentage of area median income, correct? That's how we define what affordability is. And one of the challenges that we run into in Lawrence in finding affordability is that our area median income is quite low as compared to these other companies, these other communities that you were talking about. What are your plans for enabling our community to bring in jobs which make that area median income escalate?
Do you want to pass it to Bob?
Okay, start. Yeah. Sean, I'm going to start. Good. We need industry. One of our blessings and one of our curses is KU. KU being a blessing, and the culture and the ambiance that it brings to the table and the city, but then if that was, say, an IBM campus, we'd probably be paying dividends out to people instead of collecting taxes. So the largest employer pays no property tax. That's the first part. I wouldn't trade KU for anything, though, by the way. However, we need more industrial development. We need to get a strategy, super strategy, to get more industrial development here so they can pay the tax that we need in order to function on this. That will, just like the engineering company, which one?
U.S. Engineers.
That he voted on.
Yes.
It pays substantial wages, and that helps lift the average. We need to do more of that in order to get that area median wage up. So, with that.
Yeah. Thanks for the plug, Bob. So I've been doing that. My time on commission, I've been voting for those jobs, like, kind of U.S. engineering and other manufacturing jobs, and kind of secondary and tertiary, kind of industries and employment as well that help out, like childcare, like, kind of making sure that folks have reliable childcare so they can go ahead and do the work that they want to do and earn the money that they want to earn. But yeah, I think that's kind of flows into as well, like, incentives and trying to get those companies to locate here. That's a huge part of it. I'm not gonna, obscure that as well, which I participated in and I'm a proponent of, because we're so far behind. We need to bring all our tools to the table, and we need to make sure that we have viable jobs so that people can earn a living here in this town, and to kind of, meet that the AMI, gap that you've been talking about. So.
No question, we need to bring higher paying jobs here. Given the climate of, after COVID, we have a lot of things that are a little different as far as people working remotely. People are doing more online shopping, so what we're bringing in needs to look a little different, and it's likely, like they said previously, industrial. How do we do that? In order to be competitive, we have to offer incentives, right? Just because you offer incentives does not mean that's a detriment to the taxpayers in any way. I've been a part of many successful incentive plans for either expansions of existing companies or bringing in new companies. And when you're offering incentives, which is how you remain competitive against our neighbors, you can dictate the terms of those incentives to where we are getting back. So all of these things are possible. There are 15,000 cities in this country that have done something similar. So strong economic development direction, whether through the chamber or the city, and be ready to offer incentives.
Yeah, if you look at the tax base right now, it's 70-30. 70-30 residential to commercial and industrial. One of the things that I argue for that the city has not done this year is to hire a director of economic development. When I read that position, it read like somebody who would have a cushy job downtown at City Hall. And the thing that I argued for was we need to look at that position similar to how tech looks at sales. We need somebody who's incentivized to put butts in seats, to be able to get a headquarters or a remote branch here, and incentivize that person appropriately based on that. I want somebody who has a Rolodex in the region, who can reach out to your Garmins, your Mercks, your Honeywells, your H&R Blocks, Jack Henry. All of these companies that are foundational to Kansas City should have some presence here. When you look at what Wichita State is doing, they have this economic development side of their campus. And, they're obviously an aviation city, but they have huge things for Airbus. And they're making all of these investments so that their students who go to Wichita State can have an internship program that gets out of the gate so they can start their careers doing that. Because even if all of a sudden there was a bajillion modular homes, what are we going to do for jobs? I think that's super important. And so part of this should also be, as we find somebody who is a director of economic development, who works with the chamber, to be able to get these jobs so that kids can graduate high school, can start a career here, or can have their entire career here. I believe that's super important.
I think there was another hand somewhere on this side. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. One of them is, have any of you heard anything about the potential adoption of the International Building Code of 2024? And if you have you studied the impact and compared notes from neighboring communities or communities across the nation? Because in my world of commercial real estate, I'm Allison Vansmore, there's an impact that could serve us quite poorly with some well-intended, I think, outcomes of that. I think that has a lot of unintended consequences that will hurt our development and cost ultimately more in the long run. So that's going to hit affordable housing and commercial development. The second question is, we kind of highlighted infill development, and I've heard for decades that the city, actually maybe a decade, that the city is interested in infill development, but at the end of the day, the city process really hampers and hamstrings that process because it's an elongated approval process, it's complicated, it's more expensive, it doesn't really pay for itself. And when we talk about the incentives that have been discussed today, perhaps infill development is an area that we could explore how to enhance that process for developers. So just thoughts on those two topics, please.
Yeah, it's in terms of the international building code, I'm not as familiar with that. I probably have to look into that for 2024, you're talking?
It's on the docket to be approved in either January or June, July.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's something that's coming forward.
It's
from
coming
planning.
forward, okay, if we're planning, gotcha. But yeah, it's, that'll be something, thank you for the heads up, it'll be something I'll take a deep dive into. Because, yeah, I would be a little bit hesitant to, try to, I want to make sure that we're in the best position to go ahead and, take advantage of our opportunities to add more housing and add more economic
Word on the
development.
street is that it adds 30% more cost to
Okay.
development.
Okay, so, all right, I'll take a look at that. And then the second part of that is, infill, I'm sorry. Yes, I want everybody, to be a part of the conversation with affordable housing incentive policy. That's the whole point of it, is to include private development and get, their best answers and their best solutions to the problem to go ahead and make it better. Because, like I said, it's not going to happen with just the city, or it's not going to happen with just nonprofits. Private development is going to have to be a huge part of this equation as well, because we need to make up a lot of ground. So that's important. And this deficit in housing hasn't happened overnight. This has been a slow drip for like the last, over a decade. I mean, I'd probably say since 2007, 2008, if you look at the information from Wichita State. This has been slowly atrophying up until this point. So I think it's imperative that we have all the tools in the toolbox and all the help we can get to go ahead and make some headway in it.
Allison, yes. I have been made aware of the IBC 2024, so absolutely not. We've already got cost prohibitive processes at this point. Stick with the IBC that we're using currently. So that's an easy no-brainer. I think it should be reviewed by all means, but I would not be a proponent of it. As far as infill is concerned, if we're offering incentives, we need to really look at all incentives. There's cost to the community, there's benefit to the community. All of these things are really quite simple. I mean, I've been a part of them many times, especially when we're talking about commercial buildings, right? And we've also got an arduous process when we're talking about existing buildings. In my observation, and though you guys are far more expert on it, seems to me if you're going into an existing building, the process is even more arduous. You're dealing with HRC, which I've heard can be difficult to go through, plus a litany of other things, not to mention you're dealing with the built environment. So if we want to, again, especially with those commercial buildings, if we want to get those filled, we want to maintain the built environment, we need to do everything we can to help the developers and the builders on that.
Yeah, that would be a no for me too. In terms of the infill development, I've been talking to some people in this room about what that process looks like. And arduous, we've heard stuff like that. But there's also an aspect where this could be a unique selling point for Lawrence if it's turned around. Like one of the questions I've asked during this campaign is like, why would you move to Lawrence? Or why would you live here? A lot of people say very inclusive, great restaurants. But if we're being honest, that's the same answer that Manhattan gives. That's the same answer that Ames, Norman, probably not Columbia, but those are other regional college towns will give the same answer. If working together we say, hey, right now, what does it look like? What does the development time look like? Let's say it's 2 years. And then we're able to back that down to like 1.5 years and then a year. Part of how we can sell the community is say, our developers are now able to, we've reduced it by 50% to be able to build homes. Look what we're doing as a community to drive development forward. And so, in terms of the infill and the process, I think the process could be turned into a positive selling aspect for the community. We just have to work on it together.
So, for the Allison, I didn't understand the infill question. I didn't hear all of it.
It's, as you know from experience, it's a complicated process because it's expensive, it's timely to get approvals to the city, it's complicated because of current setbacks versus at the time that the lot was established kind of things. And so I think that we aren't really walking the walk from my perspective of we promote infill development. And so I was just curious as to your approach on infill in general.
Well, infill is difficult. I mean, I've built restaurants in the middle of downtown Lawrence, and it probably takes extra 30% of the time, 30% more money. The same could be said for anything built where it's already built out pretty much, and trying to go in and do something. But so I'm in favor of anything that could get built at a cost that's reasonable and a time frame that's reasonable. If it's not, I wouldn't want to force it. I want to say you have to build here or else don't build anywhere. And that's why I say I think the next generation of good housing that's going to be affordable and economical is going to be annexation, where you can get up to scale easily. But I wouldn't want to not include infill. We certainly have some lots that are available. And so to try and help those people along, stay out of their way, I guess, is what I would say. So anyway.
I think that's good.
Sure.
So thank you. Those are wonderful questions. We are right about at our midway point. So I'm going to wrap up this portion and we'll let the candidates go to their tables and you can all continue your conversations with them one-on-one. I do want to ask one last question before we kind of end the group format. Before I ask that question, I want to remind everybody to, the deadline to register to vote is October 14th. So if you're not registered, make sure you get registered. Check your registration, make sure your address and everything is up to date. Advanced voting will start the next day, October 15th. So plenty of time to either get to the polls or to get your mail ballot and have your voice be heard. So with that, in close, in 1 minute or less, give us your elevator pitch. Why should the folks in this room vote for you on November 4th?
Which way? Yeah.
Start either way.
Whatever you jump at.
I'm formulating, Bob.
1 minute. One of the things that 1 minute doesn't give me nearly enough time to tell you my life story, which no one would care about. I want us to really think about what a bad rap developers, business owners, even maybe, I don't think real estate agents, but it seems to me the growth process is very difficult for the community. We've got incentives are a 4-letter word, right? If we can do anything, truthfully, whether I am elected or not, the best thing we can do is change that narrative. I'm doing my part. I know a lot of really good developers and a lot of really good builders. I do. And they're still putting food on their table as well, right? So if we can do anything, let's see if we work together to change that narrative. My hope is through communication and education. But if we have a community that's invested in what this group is trying to do, I promise, I think it'll go far better, far smoother. So just to this group, that's what I want to convey. Thank you.
1 minute. I really think this town's at a pivot point right now. I really do. I talk to so many people who feel this town is becoming unaffordable for them and their families, and they're asking questions like, do we have to leave? Can we even stay here? And I promise, as a city commissioner, I'm going to ask the 2 things you do not hear from city commissioners. Party foul, everyone okay? Okay. It was so funny, yesterday we were at this forum and I was giving an answer and literally the lights went out and it just sort of like just triggered it. But anyways, as a city commissioner, I'm going to ask the two questions you do not hear from city commissioners right now, which is no and why. That's my promise to you guys. If you believe that we need change, I hope for November 4th, you vote for me. And it's 41 days, not that anybody's keeping track.
I am. So once again, Bob Shem, I've lived here almost all my life, my adult life for sure. And I've raised a family here, as I said before. I've had a great business experience here. And I'm thankful for everything that we've taken from the community. I want to give back some more to keep this place great. We're on the cusp of an unbelievable opportunity to move forward. We need some people who are going to think not outside the box, not even around the box, but to the stratosphere and see how we can plug in new ideas and new innovation and make things happen. You know, I think that's lacking. It has been lacking at City Hall for probably the last 10 years or so. And we just got everything at our fingertips. We just have to put it all together. I'd like to be part of that.
Wow, new ideas and innovation. Heck, that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, man. Like since I got on, yeah, it's, we were coming out of the pandemic and we had houseless camps outside. When I was mayor, the 2 of them were matched to resources and we were able to clean those up, and then 3 more this year. So, also during my time, we developed a housing plan, which is pretty innovative, working in conjunction with the county and other, social organizations in around town to go ahead and create a continuum of housing for people to go ahead and make sure that they'll have a place to live. And then also economic development, walking the walk. I'm actually approving things in City Commission for housing, improving incentives for businesses and commercial development, like the old Lawrence World site, and Turnhala and U.S. Engineering and DECA and childcare and things of that sort. So kind of going along with the theme, I said it, I meant it, I'm doing it, and I would just like to think that, and to Mike's point of, no and why, we asked why plenty of times. And if we said no, then some of the things I just talked about wouldn't have happened. So that's all I want to add to that. So making yourself open to new possibilities is part of the equation, but also realizing those great ideas in front of you and taking advantage of them is also a part of the equation. So with your support, I'd like to keep us going in a positive direction, in a direction of resiliency and prosperity for the city of Lawrence for another 4 years. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for our time.